Welcome back to News to Astonish, guys, where we discuss comics, movies, games, and more. Here to talk to you about more of Marvel's Wolverine. Now, these videos are getting spread out sporadically throughout my channel because Marvel's Wolverine is not exactly going to be released anytime soon. We have no official date set to be released for this game, and I want to talk about it here and there, so expect a little bit more Marvel's Wolverine videos, as well as Marvel Spider-Man 2 videos, Spider-Man No Way Home news, and whatnot. So one of the questions that I really had, and a lot of you guys had the same exact question, is that if Marvel's Wolverine is going to be an open world game. Now, I'm actually thinking, personally, I believe that Marvel's Wolverine is going to be following a linear path, kind of similar to the classic X-Men Origins Wolverine movie tie-in game that was actually set on a linear path, or kind of similar to what we got today, like in The Last of Us and The Last of Us Part 2. Those games kind of follow like a linear narrative, and I'm thinking that something like that can work really well for Wolverine, because honestly, I cannot exactly picture an open world game for Wolverine unless it's set somewhere in, like, let's say Japan or even Madripoor. And Madripoor is one of those locations that's quite pivotal and very prevalent in the Marvel comics when it comes to X-Men and especially Wolverine. So a lot of the stories do take place in that city, and I think Madripoor will be the perfect place for Wolverine to explore and to traverse. And there's definitely room for a lot of Easter eggs when it comes to traversing in a place such as Madripoor. So I'm going to go ahead and read this article from ScreenRant.com, and then we will discuss. Both Insomniac Spider-Man games featured in open world New York. Does it make sense for Marvel's Wolverine to be open world too? PlayStation developers Insomniac Games' previous Marvel projects, Marvel Spider-Man and Marvel Spider-Man Miles Morales, both featured in open-world New York City for players to swing around in. But will the studio's upcoming Marvel's Wolverine also feature an open-world setting? Insomniac hasn't revealed any further details surrounding its X-Men video games since its reveal trailer at September's PlayStation Showcase, where it also gave players their first look at Marvel Spider-Man 2. However, while Marvel Spider-Man 2 is sure to retain the open-world New York present in Insomniac's previous Spider-Man video games, it's unclear if the studio will create a similar area for Logan to explore in Marvel's Wolverine. Despite the lack of information surrounding Logan's next video game, the reveal trailer for Marvel's Wolverine hinted at Madripoor being a location. It's possible that the bar featured in the trailer is the Princess Bar, which Wolverine frequented in the comics while operating under his patch identity in Madripoor. Madripoor is itself a pivotal location in Marvel's X-Men comics, and could be an ideal setting for an open-world Wolverine game. Wolverine is yet to feature as a playable character in an open-world video game, but that could change with Marvel's Wolverine. The character's last solo outing in a video game in X-Men Origins Wolverine tie-in game, which came out back in 2009, opted for a linear approach rather than an open-world setting. Older titles, such as X2 Wolverine's Revenge, also opted for a linear story, although that doesn't mean Insomniac will follow such a trend for Marvel's Wolverine. With Madripoor as a backdrop and Wolverine's patch persona teased, the studio can easily have a fresh and exciting comics locale and premise at their disposal, and one that would make a great change of pace compared to the litany of open world New York players have experienced over the last 3 console generations. There are lots of cool aspects of Madripoor as a potential open world setting for Marvel's Wolverine, with Logan's patch persona being one. Madripoor would be a more chaotic setting compared to New York, as the city is a criminal haven that was once governed by Viper, a longtime enemy of the X-Men. Still, the fact remains that the Knucklehead isn't as agile as Peter Parker or Miles Morales. It's impossible to see Logan traversing rooftops like Spider-Man or the Incredible Hulk in an open-world game, as although he's pretty swift for a guy who's over 100 years old, he still doesn't possess the moveset of either of those characters. That doesn't mean an open world is outside of the character's reach though, just that it requires a different approach in order to work compared to the web slinger. Fortunately, there are already 2 PlayStation exclusives that Insomniac could take inspiration from in order to make an open world Wolverine game more viable. The first being Days Gone. Logan is frequently seen riding motorcycles in the comics and in Fox's X-Men movies, and it's easy to envision how Days Gone's bike gameplay and upgrades could work in a Wolverine title. Players could take to the streets at night in their own customizable ride, and Insomniac could even transplant some elements from Marvel Spider-Man into vehicular combat. Having Wolverine end car chases by leaping from his motorcycle onto the bonnet of an enemy vehicle, slicing away at its engine or even tires to cause them to stop. The other PlayStation exclusives that could illustrate how best to adapt Wolverine to an open world setting is Ghost of Tsushima. Wolverine did spend a lot of time in Japan in the comics, particularly during his Chris Claremont and Frank Muller's seminal run on the character, and has emulated ninja-style tactics in the past. Ghost of Tsushima's setting of feudal Japan may not be as vertical as a city like Madripoor, but like Assassin's Creed Sucker Punch's game demonstrates how video games characters do not need to fly or swing from webs in order to make sprawling locales navigable. Of course, it may be Insomniac's elect to take a different approach with Marvel's Wolverine altogether. The studio has also featured a wide variety of genres across its various titles, with Ratchet & Clank series combining platforming and shooter elements, and Resistance being a first-person shooter. Marvel's Wolverine could present an opportunity for Insomniac to tackle a genre it hasn't before, and further distinguish Logan's game from Marvel's Spider-Man series. So this is really interesting. It's very important that Insomniac Games is going to come out with Marvel's Wolverine, which is an entirely different superhero from Marvel's Spider-Man, that it should definitely separate itself and distinguish itself easily from the previous titles, such as Marvel's Spider-Man and Marvel's Spider-Man Miles Morales. So we don't definitely want a carbon copy. Again, Marvel's Wolverine is an entirely different superhero, so he shouldn't be able to traverse exactly like Spider-Man, but he is pretty spry for a guy that's over 100 years old. So I would expect him to at least be able to leap, maybe jump on walls and stick to them by, I guess, penetrating the walls with his claws at least, but not climbing them to be exact. And I'm pretty sure this guy will be very swifty in his combat, since he's already had tons of training in various different countries throughout his years. Again, this is going to be really exciting. It's going to be an entirely different game. I'm pretty sure, I think Marvel's Wolverine will probably follow the linear path. I'm still leaning on that, but as time goes by and we get more information about Marvel's Wolverine, perhaps my opinion will change. And I would love Marvel's Wolverine to be an open world game, because that is going to be really exciting. And I'm pretty sure Insomniac Games is the perfect developing studio to actually go ahead and create that and make that come to fruition. So you guys comment down below, what are your thoughts? Would you like to see Marvel's Wolverine take place in an open world setting, or should it still take place on a linear path where it's semi-open world and not exactly full open world? So comment down below, guys, with your thoughts and theories and suggestions. Thanks for watching. Be sure to like, comment, subscribe, and click on bell notifications so you don't miss videos like this, and I'll see you all in the next comic panel.